Today we'll look at the three faces of parties. The first face is the party in the electorate, the second is the party organization, and the third is the party in government. American political parties perform their various functions through these three faces or spheres of operation. The three components of the party, like I said, include the party in the electorate, the party organization, and the party in government. Let's look at the party in the electorate. All the individuals who identify with or tend to support a political party make up the party in the electorate. Several factors include which party an individual will identify with, and I think that asks you in the questions to label these 7 things. They include 1. Personal circumstances, 2. Race, 3. Religion, 4. A party's history, 5. Ideology, 6. Position on issues of importance to the voter, and 7. Candidates. The term party identifier refers to an individual who identifies himself or herself as a member of one party or the other. Party identifiers typically are measured by party registration. In most states, party registration is a legal process in which a voter formally selects affiliation with one political party. This declaration of affiliation often occurs when a person registers to vote. The prospective voter selects his or her party identification by filling out a voter registration form or party declaration form. We will be registering to vote pretty soon. Depending on the state, a voter may select the Democratic or Republican Party, a variety of third parties, or no party. When a voter does not select a party, he or she is technically an unaffiliated voter, but often analysts refer to such voter as an independent. I'll give you a little hint to one of your questions. If you register as an independent in the state of New York, it's great that you've registered. However, you cannot vote in any primary elections because we have a closed primary system in the state of New York. People's party's identification sometimes does not match their actual voting preferences. When we refer to the party in the electorate, we also consider those individuals who express a tendency to vote for one party or a preference for that party. Determining who belongs to each political party is quite a process. Although we commonly speak in terms of which groups affiliate with and belong to each of the political parties, those are just generalizations, with many exceptions. In general, each political party counts specific demographic groups as part of its base of support. A party will often draw party activists and leaders from the ranks of this block of individuals whose support can be counted on. Although whites, men, and people with some college education are naturally found in both parties, they are more likely to be Republicans. For the Democrats, key voting blocs include African Americans, women, and people with no college education. Hispanics, a demographic group that is increasing in importance, has traditionally leaned Democratic, though some Hispanics, particularly Cuban Americans and deeply religious Hispanics, are more likely to identify with Republicans, and both political parties have actively courted this group. Individuals with a college degree are more evenly divided between the two parties. Social class also plays a role in party preference. The working class is largely Democratic, and the upper middle class is largely Republican, and the middle class, by far the largest class in the United States, is divided between the two parties. The best predictor of a person's party identification is his or her ideology. People who identify themselves as conservative are much more likely to be Republicans. People who identify themselves as liberal are much more likely to be Democrats. We can trace some of the differences in both ideologies and core constituencies between today's Democrats and Republicans to the 1930s. That was the era of the Great Depression, a time of devastating economic collapse and personal misery for people around the world. President FDR's drive to expand the role of government by providing a safety net for the most vulnerable in society has remained part of the Democratic agenda to this day. In the past several decades, this agenda has centered on pressing for civil rights for African Americans and for the expansion of social welfare programs. Today, key components of the Democratic agenda include gay rights, including a plank advocating gay marriage, environmental protection, and the freedom of choice with respect to abortion. Remember that you have to differentiate these two parties for your portfolio, so you might want to be writing these down. Traditionally, Republicans have countered that position by advocating a smaller government that performs fewer social welfare functions. Many members of the Tea Party, this is a definition, a grassroots conservative protest movement that opposed recent government actions, including economic stimulus spending and healthcare reform, end of definition, argue that smaller government should be the focus of the modern Republican Party. But a major priority for the Republican Party today is advocacy of a stronger governmental role in regulating traditional moral values. Because of this stance, a solid voting bloc within the Republican Party comprises conservative Christians, sometimes called the Christian right or the religious right, who agree with the Republicans' pro-life position on abortion, which includes support for an increased regulation of abortion, and appeals for a constitutional amendment banning gay marriage. Republicans also emphasize protection of business and business owners and generally support a decreased role for the federal government, particularly with respect to the economy and social welfare issues, and a corresponding larger role for state governments. It is not surprising that the base constituencies of the parties are drawn from the groups that each party's platform emphasizes. The base of the Democratic Party predominantly includes women, the majority of whom since 1980 have voted for the Democratic presidential nominee. Since Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal social welfare policies during the 1930s, African Americans have been an important voting bloc within the Democratic Party. Although they have faced struggles and strife in asserting and securing their rights, particularly during the civil rights movement of the 1960s. Other ethnic minorities, including Latinos and Asian Americans, also tend to support the Democratic Party, as do many working class voters. The base of the Republican Party prominently includes many small business owners, citizens who identify themselves as being very religious, and the upper middle class voters. Though today we see much division between the political parties in terms of issue priorities, there are also many similarities between Democrats and Republicans. The reason for this is that economic concerns are the dominant focal point for nearly all Americans right now. In fact, leading up to the 2012 presidential election, 91% of Democrats and 94% of Republicans said that the economy was the most important issue, with similar proportions of both groups identifying unemployment and the health care law as important issues. But there are some differences between Democrats and Republicans. Democrats are much more likely to say that the difference between the rich and poor was important. 81% of Democrats rated as extremely or very important to their vote, while only 35% of Republicans said that it was an extremely or very important factor. Republicans, 92%, were more likely to identify the federal budget deficit as an important issue, while most Democrats, 66%, thought it was important, but not by as a wide margin. Terrorism, important to 81% of Republicans and 67% of Democrats, and immigration, important to 57% of Republicans and 41% of Democrats, also reflected differences between priorities between party identifiers. All right, so this is the second one, the party organization. Thomas P., or Tip O'Neill, a Democrat from Massachusetts and Speaker of the House of Representatives from 1977 until 1987, is often quoted as saying, "All politics is local." In no case is that statement truer than it is for American political parties. Party organization refers to the formal party apparatus, including committees, headquarters, conventions, party leaders, staff, and volunteer workers. In the United States, the party organization is most visible at the local level, yet county and local parties tend to be loosely organized, centered predominantly on elections, and may be dormant when election season passes. Except during presidential elections, state and local political parties typically function quite separately from the national party. Although the number of individuals who actually participate in the party organization is quite small when compared with the party and the electorate, on the local level, political parties offer one of the most accessible means for individuals to participate in politics. But with respect to political power, county and local parties are the most important components of a party organization. Theoretically, political parties' organization resembles a pyramid, with a broad base of support at the bottom and power flowing up to a smaller group at the state level, and then to an even smaller, more exclusive group at the national level. In reality, the national committees of both major U.S. political parties exist separately from the committees of the state and local parties. And real political power can usually be found at the local or county party level, as we will see in the following discussion. Every 4 years, political party activists meet at a national convention to determine their party's nominee for the presidency. Here, the delegates also adopt rules and develop a party platform that describes the party's policy, priorities, and positions on issues. The National Party Committee, the Democratic National Committee, or DNC, and the Republican National Committee, or RNC, are the national party organizations charged with conducting the conventions and overseeing the operation of the national party during the interim between conventions. The National Committee elects a national chair, who is often informally selected by the party's presidential nominee. The national chair, along with the paid staff of the National Committee, oversees the day-to-day operations of the political party. But the role of the national chair depends to a large extent on whether the party's nominee wins the presidency. If the party's nominee is victorious, the national chair has a less prominent role because the president serves as the most public representative of the party. If the party's nominee loses, however, the national chair may take on a more public persona, serving as the spokesman for the loyal opposition. The out-of-power party's objections to the policies and priorities of the government in power. In recent years, regardless of whether the party's nominees has won or lost, one of the most important roles of the national chair has been to raise funds. Money donated to the national parties is often redirected to the state and local parties, which use it to help contest elections and mobilize voters. Both national parties have committees in each state, the Illinois State Democratic Committee, for example, or the New York State Democratic Committee, or the New York State Republican Committee. That effectively are the party in the states. State committees act as intermediaries between the national committees and county committees. Typically, state committees are made up of a few members from each county or the other geographical subdivision of a given state. Historically, state parties were important because of their role in the election of U.S. senators who, until 1913, were elected by the state's legislatures, and that's going to be your 17th Amendment. Since the ratification of the 17th Amendment in that year, the voters of each state have directly elected their senators by popular election. Later in the 20th century, state political parties began a rebound of power, partly because of the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Buckley versus Vallejo. I didn't put this in the Prezi, but make sure you write this down. In this case, the court ruled that political parties are entities with special status because their functions of educating and mobilizing voters and contesting elections help to ensure democracy. That's Buckley, B as in boy, U, C, K, L, E as in Edward, Y, versus, and anytime you're in a court case, it's just V, period, Vallejo, V as in Victor, A as in Apple, L, E as in Edward, O, Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. This ruling created the so-called soft money loophole, through which the political parties could raise unlimited funds for party-building activities such as voter registration drives and Get Out the Vote, or GOTV, efforts, although contributions to specific candidates were limited. The court's decision strengthened the influence of the state's parties, which the national parties often relied on to coordinate these efforts. The Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act of 2002, write that down, the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act of 2002, also known as the McCain-Feingold Act, eliminated the soft money loophole, but until that time, state parties were strengthened by their ability to channel those contributions to political parties. Bear with me, we're getting there. County committees consist of members of municipal, ward, and precinct party committees. The foot soldiers of the political parties, county committees, help recruit candidates for office, raise campaign funds, and mobilize voters. The importance of a given county committee's role largely depends on whether its candidates are elected and whether its party controls the government. Party success tends to promote competition for candidate slots and for seats on the county committee. In most major cities, ward committees and precinct committees dominate party politics. Because city council members are often elected to represent a ward, ward committees are a powerful force in city politics, providing the grassroots organization that turns voters out in city elections. Precinct committees, a precinct is usually a subdivision of a ward, also help elect city council members. Besides fundraising, county and local political parties still play key roles in shaping both community engagement and individual participation in the political process. As they have done historically during election season in most places from the end of August through the first week in November, county and local parties recruit and rely on volunteers to perform a host of functions, including answering phones in party headquarters, registering voters, coordinating mailings, doing advance work for candidates, compiling lists for Get Out the Vote efforts, or GOTV, supervising door knocking campaigns, and staffing phone banks to remind voters to vote on election day. All right, so the third one is the party in government. When candidates run for local, state, or national office, their party affiliation usually appears next to their name on the ballot. After an elected official takes the oath of office, many people do not think about the party's affiliation, but in fact, the party in government. I need to backtrack for a second. After an elected official takes the oath of office, many people do not think about the official's party affiliation, but in fact, the party in government, the partisan identification of elected leaders in local, county, state, and national government, significantly influences the organization and running of the government at these various levels. In most towns, the party identification of the majority of the members of the legislative branch, often called city council or town council, determines who will serve as the head of the legislature, sometimes called the president of city council. And in most towns, the president of city council hails from the majority party. In addition, paid professionals' positions such as city solicitor, the town's lawyer, town planner, and city engineer are often awarded on the basis of the support of the majority of council. Even though the entire council votes on appointments, the minority party members often defer to the majority, since opponents typically are viewed as a privilege of winning a majority. Other opponents might include positions on voluntary boards such as a town planning or zoning board. On the state level, the party in government plays a similarly prominent role in organizing government work. Typically, state legislatures are organized around political party. Seating assignments and committee assignments are made by the majority party leadership are based on a legislator's party affiliation. If you look at this map, it illustrates the partisan breakdown of state legislatures. In each state, the party with a majority, shown in the map, in the legislature also has a majority of the legislators' committees, which decide the outcome of proposed legislation. Parties, moreover, are important in the executive branch of state government, since state governments typically appoint party loyalists to key positions in their administrations. Depending on the appointment powers of the governor, which vary from state to state, a governor may also appoint party members to plum assignments on state regulatory boards. In states where the governor appoints the judiciary, the governor also frequently selects judicial nominees from his or her own political party. Parties perform a similar role in the federal government. Presidents draw from party loyalists to fill cabinet and sub-cabinet appointments and typically appoint federal judges from their own political party. Congress is organized based on the party affiliation of its members. When representatives or senators refer to a colleague on the other side of the aisle, they are referring to a member of the political party, since congressional Democrats and Republicans sit across the aisle from one another. As in state legislatures, the party with the majority in Congress essentially runs the legislative branch. From its ranks comes the congressional leadership, including the Senate Majority Leader, the Speaker of the House, and the House Majority Leader, which we'll get to when we talk about Congress. Okay, last thing. Thanks for hanging in there. There are limits to a party's power. Probably the most important check comes from the opposition party, which can openly criticize the party in power and sometimes succeed in obstructing policy initiatives. For example, when Republicans won control of the U.S. House of Representatives in 2010, President Obama faced truncated government when one chamber of Congress is controlled by the same party that controls the White House, while the other chamber is controlled by the other party. The power of that Republicans wielded was particularly notable in the summer of 2011, when Republicans refused to increase the federal government debt ceiling without concessions from President Obama and the Democrats controlling the Senate. In other situations, the opposing party has aggressively investigated alleged misconduct on the part of an elected leader. During parts of the Clinton and George W. Bush administrations, for example, the president and members of Congress functioned with a divided government, the situation in which one party controls both houses of Congress and the other party, the presidency. Divided government emerged from 2006 midterm elections when the Democrats won control of both houses of Congress. Democrats in Congress alleged administration misconduct when it appeared that the Bush Attorney General Alberto Gonzales dismissed federal prosecutors for political reasons rather than competence. You did a great job. Thanks for hanging in.